All right, this is the third method of solving. We're going to solve by square roots, which is essentially just solving for x. So there's no specific method. It's just like solving our equations, except we have one step that we're adding in. So this can be any time. You can use this any time you do not have a b value. So anytime you don't have a b value, you can use this, or an x value. Because remember, the b is in front of the x. So you have an x squared and you have another number. So if we look at number 1, we're going to just try to isolate our variable, just like we did with multi-step equations. So this 3x squared is attached to the variable, so how would I get it alone? I would add 12 to both sides. That cancels this 12, so we have 3x squared equals 24. Then I would divide each side by 3 to get x squared equals 8. Now, how do you get rid of a squared? You would square root it. Now, here's the part you have to remember. When you're square rooting, think about a square root. If I have 16, what times what is 16? We have 4 times 4 to give us a positive 16, but you can also have negative 4 times negative 4 to give you a 16. So that's what's really important. Think back to your quadratic formula. We have the plus or minus before the answer. We have the positive and negative option. So let's go ahead and square root that 8, and you get 2.83. So we can have positive 2.83 and negative 2.83. So if we write that as our 2 points, we would have 2.830 and negative 2.830. And those would be our two x-intercepts. Okay, so sometimes they come out like that. Just like with the quadratic formula, sometimes they get a little funky. So if I subtract 16 on both sides to this one, I get 4x squared equals negative 16. I'm going to divide by 4, and x squared equals negative 4. Well, when I square root this, what happens? I get x equals plus or minus, it's stuck. So what did we do? When we square rooted a negative 4, remember we pulled out an I, so we would have 2i for this one, which means there's no real solutions. They're imaginary. Okay, now this third one is where it gets a little crazy. So for the third one, we would have adding our 9, because what we want to do is get this whole chunk by itself. So we have x plus 2 squared equals 9. Now, I cannot solve for the x by subtracting the 2 yet. We have to get rid of the squared since that whole chunk is squared. So how do we get rid of a squared? We square root both sides. And what do we have to remember when we square root? When we square root, we have a positive and negative answer. The square root of 9 is 3, so sometimes you will get whole numbers. And now we have one more step. We have to subtract 2 from each side. So this one kind of filters into kind of like our quadratic formula. We would have negative 2 plus or minus 3. So we're going to split it up to get our two answers. We have negative 2 plus 3, and we have negative 2 minus 3. Negative 2 plus 3 is 1. Negative 2 minus 3 is negative 5. So lots of different options, but your goal is to solve down to get x alone. And you should, most of the time, still get two answers.